Major League Baseball is right now. Talked a lot about the National League last episode, looking especially at the Atlanta Braves. But we're going to dive into the American League here a little bit. All these stats, everything I'm going to talk about today, as of June 13th, Friday the 13th. So either really, really good for you with lucky number 13, or tread lightly, stay in the house, don't go anywhere. Jason's coming after you. Looking at the American League across the board, Yankees, Tigers, top of the pyramid. I mean, Tigers just absolutely crushing people. The Job injury, I'm kind of skeptical from a pitching perspective how it's going to hurt. But Flaherty's pitched a lot better lately. Obviously, Skubal's an absolute stud at the top of the rotation. In that lineup, Meadows coming back, Baez playing well, which I think is really, really cool. Riley Green, Torkelson, Colt Keith. They're getting production across the board from everybody. Carey, Carpenter, all of it, and the Tigers have a vibe. It They are heads and shoulders above everybody else in the AL Central. Last year it was a pretty nip and tuck tight battle, but so far they're pulling away. It's can they maintain this course? Right now they're the first team to 40 in Major League Baseball. They're currently number one. It's the top seed, if you will. If the playoffs started today in the American League. Um, it's something really cool to see in Detroit, getting those guys and playing so well. But can this carry through the rest of June into July, August? Do they still have the maintain staying power to be ready down the stretch in September and most importantly in October? The other side, the Yankees, obviously Aaron Judge, out of this world. Yeah, the dude just is raking. I mean, he hits mistakes. His mistake swings are sending balls out of the ballpark. But the whole lineup is playing well. Goldschmidt is raking. Bellinger, it, he's going through his couple, but it's not all on him. You have Ben Rice playing well. You just get back Jazz Chisholm. Volpe's okay. They're getting contributions everywhere. I can see them making a move somewhere down the road to maybe adding an extra player in that team to solidify that lineup, especially the pitching side. But right now they're really good. Pitching wise, can they can they maintain? Obviously, Garrett Cole's still out. Marcus Stroman's on the rehab side. Uh, can they maintain the pitching for the entire rest of the season? Will they make a move for someone? Will they go after Sandy Alcantara, who has tremendous skills? They won't even want to separate for a pitcher who has obviously not fully back from being injured. His ERA is through the roof, hasn't pitched really well. But do you take the risk, go for the talent and the prior, potential and make the move now and get him back in there and get him maybe in a winning environment where he feels better? Who knows? But I think the Yankees are going to have to go out and make a move within the bullpen or the rotation to help solidify their move. But right now they are still a load and they're a wagon in the American League. The American League West, the Wild Wild West, the Western Adventure, whatever you want to call it. Mariners, Astros, um, Ast- uh, Rangers, and Angels, all within 5.5 games of first place. It's a logjam right there. They are all have intriguing parts. Like the Mariners, their pitching staff is really, really good. Their bats, they come and go. Like expect more from Julio Rodriguez. I always forget that Randy Arozarena is out there, and Cal Raleigh, the big jumper, is just dropping bombs left and right and leading them all of baseball in home runs. They have some players, but they don't have the full lineup. You really can't count on them every single night, so they can be able to score at will. But the pitching staff is so good, it keeps them there. I think they need to make a move for a bat, and sort of help solidify that. The Astros, I I had my doubts, but that lineup's starting to find it. Isaac Paredes is playing well. Obviously, the whole normal host of characters. Christian Walker's still not fully there, but he's getting there. Alonso hasn't had, um, you know, the major bat contributions, but he's going about his business. They're getting hits, they're driving the runs. Jeremy Pena's been amazing. Pitching staff is just managed. Hunter Brown pitching a lot better than what he has, showing a lot of growth. And got to be the tip of the cap to the Astros organization for continuing to hang with Hunter Brown because the first couple of years he was right around 4.5, 5, and we really think like is this guy just all worth the hype? Is washed out, but he's pitched it better. Angels have just been resilient. They just call it Christian Moore. I'll dive into that a little bit later. But Mike Trout's been playing well. Ron Washington. It, I'll stay with the Braves. Ever since he came over and became the manager of the Angels, and the way they're playing now, and they've kind of fought through. Maybe Ron Washington is the true, you know, the guru, the genius, and the guy can coach the baseball. He can motivate the players, puts them in the right spot to be successful. And you're seeing it right now in LA. They're playing well. They are. We had a lot of shortcomings. We didn't trust their pitching. So far, they're playing good baseball. They're not world beaters, but they are consistent and they're winning. And they're staying involved in the conversation through the middle of June, which is a major and exciting thing there over in Anaheim. And then the Texas Rangers, that lineup, obviously there were a lot of issues early on. And then they bring in Brett Boone to be the new hitting coach about 3 weeks ago, maybe about this time. And that team is starting to respond. Obviously, Corey Seager's still struggling, coming off injuries. That dude has not got his groove going, but the rest of the lineup is starting to hit. Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford, Adolis Garcia, even Marcus Semien started to hit. They have role players, but the guys who are getting paid are starting to deliver. The high draft picks are starting to get their swings down, starting driving runs, getting a little more consistent. If Corey Seager can get that going along with the pitching staff of Molly and DeGrom, and then they get Evaldi back, the rest of the guys, this team has a chance to make a run the second half of the year and win that division. Right now they have the best pitching staff ERA in the American League. That's starters and relievers combined. If they can keep that going and the offense can start producing more, you got to figure that pitching is going to have a little maybe a rough spot. If the offense can pick them up, it puts them in a good spot to really take off like they did 2 years ago and go win the World Series. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series, but making a run to be there in the very end. And everyone thinks like, oh, they're going to get a bunch of wins in that division from the Athletics. The Sacramento, Vegas, Oakland, artists formerly known as whatever, the TBD, Athletics, whatever you want to call them, they're very entertaining. Yes, they have deficiencies in the pitching staff, a lot of young guys, but the offense, and I'll talk about whether it's Langoliers, Soderstrom, Rooker, Jared Wilson, Lawrence Butler, the rest of that team, they have guys on the fielding side, the hitting side that are extremely entertaining, who are delivering big numbers, who are exciting to watch. They're getting people in the ballpark because these guys will actually, at times, can outmuscle you and outscore. They're not a boring bad team. Not to hail the Rockies, but the Rockies are a boring bad team. There's nothing good about the Rockies that really entertains me to go watch the ball game unless I'm going to be watching the other team. The Athletics, being a team that has a lot of young, intriguing prospects, at least if they're going to be bad, it gives me a reason to go watch them play. So you never know what they're going to do. That offense, they went on like a 12-game losing streak, but at least they were competitive and they were scoring runs, and you never knew what was going to happen. Seeing that develop drives me to the ballpark, and it makes it tough for everyone else. If they're in a pennant race, it's not a walkover game. If you go play the Athletics, it's like, all right, we're not going to get it 2 out of 3 guarantee. We're not going to get a sweep. Their offense is going to keep them in. We're going to have to pitch really well to keep up with what they're doing. So the AL West, there's going to be, those 5 teams are all going to make it difficult for other people trying to make a play for the wild card. Look at the AL East. Orioles, extremely disappointing. Now, I didn't pick them to make the playoffs. I figured they were going to have a pitching staff issue, and voila, their pitching staff is terrible. Charlie Morton's pitching well lately, but they still have serious rotation issues. Corbin Burns not signing him long term was a major problem. Obviously, he got hurt. You can't predict that, but him not being there is the ace on the top. Other young guys they drafted and being supposed to be called up like Rodriguez, they're not pitching the way they should be. They're not getting that from the bullpen. They're not getting it in the starting rotation. And the offense that's still young is still trying to get their groove and start to hit and try. They can't just match themselves to victories consistently. Jackson Holliday's playing better, but Adley Rutschman's not hitting like he should be. Henderson's not raking like he should or expected to be. Luke Hauser for a little bit being hurt. Ryan O'Hearn not hitting like he's hitting, but Ryan O'Hearn should not be your number one guy in the line for reviving around. So the Orioles are a problem right now. But looking at the rest of it, the Blue Jays are surging right now. Their offense is delivering. And you talk about guys who in the lineup who are contributing. Vlad Guerrero's not hitting 40, 50 bombs right now. Bo Bichette's not crushing 30, 40 home runs right now. But the entire lineup are hitting and producing. George Springer's having a revival. They're getting contributions from a bunch of young guys they developed and getting up in there, especially like a name that pops to my mind right off the bat, Ernie Clement. These guys, they weren't names that were going to come into fantasy baseball drafting. They're beginning like, oh, that's a lock, that's a lock. That guy's going to hit 280 and drive in 75. No, they're guys in the organization. They grew them up, they developed them, and they're hitting and scoring runs. They're not always relying on the home run ball, which also is very sustainable for an offense. If you're relying on the home run, you're probably going to be in trouble. You need to be able to find a way to manufacture runs. And the Blue Jays right now, their offense especially is doing that. In the pitching rotation, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, Jose Barrios, the 3 of them right at the top. 2 years ago, I think the Blue Jays expected these guys to really be 3 stat aces, dominant, all have ERAs under 3, and just carry the Blue Jays through. They didn't live up to expectations the past couple of years, but right now they're quietly there's not much pressure going into the season, but quietly, the three of them are pitching well. The bullpen's pitching better. Hoffman at the back end has been solid. They're getting contributions and they're getting quality out makers. They're getting quality hits when they need them offensively, and the Blue Jays are playing really well. Can they sustain this to the playoffs? That's the biggest question because it still is middle of June. They have to keep carrying this through, but they are playing much better. The Rays, I expected them to have a terrible season. I expected them. Where was the team going to get offense from? Where is pitching staff going to come from? Lo and behold, they continue just prove us all wrong. Quietly contending. They have been trouble for people. They get timely hits. Their pitching staff has been lights out when they need it to be. A bunch of overachievers who play like major leaguers every single night. They are not a walkover. You have to take them seriously. This team could just boom before you know it, they're in the playoffs and they're causing people and they're like, who are the Rays? Do they have anybody on the team, that shines? That's a national, name. Obviously, McClanahan injured, not on the active roster. Rosarena has been gone for a year and a half now. You don't have that name that's going to pop. So that's the guy. It's the guys who are just playing well together. They have a culture there in Tampa, and the Rays are just going to be in contention. They're going to be pesky all year, and they're going to fight. Look at the Red Sox. They've had a lot of issues. They've had some pitching issues outside of Garrett Crochet. Their offense has been inconsistent, which has led to Roman Anthony getting called up, Marcel Meyer getting called up. Kristen Campbell obviously started the season on the Major League squad. The three young guys are up there playing with Trevor Story, Devers, Duran's playing well. They have all the core of their development players from that perspective. Now it's time for them to mature together, keep playing the rest of the season. It's a long year, but can those young players energize the current guys that are on that squad, all play to a high level and get them back into playoff contention? Because right now they're in fourth place in the AL East. If they all can grow up quicker, either this year is a way to get that all out of the way and they can mature, and then next year they take the next step, or as the year goes on, they start building confidence and then make a late rush into September. And hey, before you know it, they're in the playoff hunt and they're in the playoffs. So the Red Sox are going to be in the conversation, but can the young guys play at a high level? It's going to be interesting to see getting them all together at some point, how that culture blends there in Boston, because expectations, it's not like in Tampa or Milwaukee or Kansas City where you have a bunch of young core players all developing at one time and they kindly just get themselves set. It's Boston. There is Yankees, Red Sox. It's Red Sox. It's Fenway. Like the pressure is there for these young guys to perform at a high level immediately and not ease themselves in. So wonder how they're going to relate to that and move forward. The AL Central, it was a tremendous race last year. Three teams made the playoffs. And right now, Tigers are up eight games on the Twins, up 8.5 on the Guardians, and up 10.5 on the Royals. They have given themselves a buffer. They got to be aware that they're going to play a lot of the Tigers have to play a lot of Twins, Guardians, and Royals rest down the stretch. Maintain that lead. You don't need to race out, but you need to be able to keep yourself a quality buffer, get yourself in the playoffs, lock yourself that 1 or 2 seed, and move on. Don't get too high on your own laurels because the Twins, if they can stay healthy, Byron Buxton's playing really well. They're going to be in the conversation. The Guardians, they're that pesky team that they're going to show up in the Royals. They have some veteran leadership. They have some young players. If they can pitch better, I think they'll be in the conversation. But Cole Ragans being hurt, getting the extra look at his elbow, probably not the best thing for Kansas City at this moment. But that race, there could be 2 playoff teams out of the AL Central. But there's a lot of talent there, and I think they're going to beat up on each other. It's not going to be easy course for the American League wild card because these teams are all so very close, and they all have a lot of intriguing attributes positively that make them worrisome. Looking at the overall wild card, speaking of that, I think everyone except for the Orioles, Athletics, and White Sox are really in contention. If I had to say, well, which one of those 3 actually could be a late bloomer? I think right now the Athletics have the players, the offense that might be able to carry them, but none of those 3 teams have the pitching that will actually, I think, allow them to sustain. I think the Orioles right now, they have some confidence boost, but that lineup is in that rotation it's tough to get behind right now. As of June 13th, the top wildcard spots in the American League currently owned by the Blue Jays. They own the top spot, excuse me. And then there are 2 games up on the Rays and Twins, who own the second and third spot, if you will. The outside just looking in, Guardians, Royals, Mariners, Angels, Red Sox, and Rangers, all within 3.5 games of that last playoff spot. And if you want to say within 5.5 of the Blue Jays for that first one. So that is it's a whole host of teams. A lot of mixing and moving and shaking can be coming into play there. And with the trade deadline being late July, early August, about 6 weeks away. Which of these teams can make moves in the next 6 weeks to put them in a spot to make a move, a big trade, to go out there and grab a player to push them to that next spot? Or who's going to be out of the race and start selling? But with the wild cards being three teams now as opposed to one it was in the past, there's these teams are all going to be in contention unless they have going some serious, double-digit game losing streaks over the next time period and completely take themselves out of the race. They're going to be involved, and these things are going to go all the way down to the wire. So, do you trust your organizational depth? Do you make a bold trade move to go out there and grab somebody? That's what these front offices are sort of working with. They have the trade, not only do they have the draft coming up in a couple of weeks at the All-Star break, but they also have that trade deadline a couple of weeks later where your franchise, do you know who you are? I kind of mentioned it with the Cardinals last episode. They have organizational talent deficiencies, and they have Arenado's contract. Do you play for the playoffs and say, hey, you know what? We'll roll with it. I don't care about draft spot. I don't care about, um, you know, acquiring prospects for a top end, potential trade with a Sonny Gray or an Arenado. And we're just going to play out the schedule, who we got, and we're going to go after the goal of making the playoffs as opposed to keeping the organizational sustainable and building it for the future. Uh, Looking at that, I think the Royals had that question. You made the trade early. You traded away, Brady Singer for Jonathan India. India's playing okay. Singer's actually pitching much better with the Reds, but you now with the Cole Reagans trade, with injury or a concern, do you kind of look at yourself like, do we have enough pitching to keep us going? We called up, Caglione. We have the bats in our lineup, but do we have the pitching that's going to carry us forward? And be ready for that. If we don't have that number two or number three in that rotation, do we kind of understand where we're at? Or do we call up a prospect or make another bold move to find a rotation member and give up some prospects to, hey, we're going to go all in and make a move? Same thing with the Angels. They haven't been in the playoffs in a long time. Who knows how long Mike Trout's going to be healthy? Do you make a bold move in LA to hey, we're going to go run for the AL West because it is wide open, or we're going to make a run for a wild card spot because we haven't been there in a while. It's a chance for us to make the move. The Rangers have made a lot of moves in the past. Is there one other key move they want to make for that bullpen to throw them over the top and get them to win the division or even make the playoffs and just roll from there because they have the bats? Interesting to see how these things play out. We know the Guardians probably aren't going to be very, very active in the trade market, but do their teams keep them in the race no matter what? So interesting race we're going to see down the stretch for them from the American League.